Hello and welcome to this afternoon's session showcasing some of iCASP's activities and projects relating to how we've been increasing climate resilience in the region's cities, towns and villages. My name is Ben Rabb and I'm an Impact Translation Fellow in the programme. So as we all know, globally the climate is changing, and that's certainly the case in Yorkshire as well. The most recent UK climate change projections, iCASP, reinforce the evidence we have that we will be expecting to experience hotter, drier summers and warmer, wetter winters, and generally more extreme weather. So what does this mean for the region? Well, 2020's already been a very good example of the types of impacts that we're likely to experience. February was the wettest February on record, followed by the driest May on record. And this fluctuation in our weather is really clear to see in the river levels across the region. What does this mean for society? Well, back in the winter, we experienced widespread costly flooding, followed by, in May, concerns about water availability and potentially an impending drought. And more recently, last week, weather warnings for extreme convective rainfall events, which could lead to, amongst other things, surface water flooding. So back in 2017, the UK carried out its climate change risk assessment. And what you'll see from this list here is that climate change doesn't necessarily create new risks, rather it exacerbates existing risks. So number one, we have flooding and coastal change risks to communities, business and infrastructure. Number two, we have risk to health and well-being. Number three, shortages of water for agriculture, energy and industry. Number four, risk to natural capital, ecosystems, soils, biodiversity. Number five, risk to food production. And number six, pests and diseases and invasive non-native species. And what iCASP projects have aimed to do in many cases is to improve our ability to anticipate, plan for and mitigate these risks in particular. So this slide summarizes some of iCASP projects in this broad theme of increasing climate resilience in the region's cities, towns and villages, each of which will be expanded upon in the sessions this afternoon. So back in 2017, we had a project which then looked at the prospective future use of iCASP projections for assessing drought and flood risk in the region. Some of the data from those projections then went into an evidence brief for local authorities to improve their water efficiency standards. We had a project looking at enhanced surface water flood forecasting. And this is really important because what the projections are telling us is that these convective heavy rainfall events will become more frequent and surface water flooding will become an increasing risk. We also have a project on improving the biosecurity measures that local authorities take to reduce the risk of invasive non-native species. We have a project on, in partnership with Public Health England, on the use of environmental science for health and well-being in the climate emergency, and that's all around using a WebGIS to allow collaborative decision making in public health in local authorities. We also have a cluster of projects related to improving flood resilience. So we are working on the DEFRA Property Flood Resilience Pathfinder project. We have another project on improving flood risk communications, and separately on improving the resilience of small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as a project in Hull looking at integrated surface water telemetry. We also have a couple of projects on improving and influencing the business case for green and blue infrastructure, and associated with that, a project on a systems approach to urban infrastructure management, more of which you'll learn about later. iCASP being an impact program, what we'll also be doing is highlighting the interdependencies between these projects, the links, the partner projects with organisations outside of iCASP, and also the wider impact that these projects are having on society in the region and nationally. So, for example, the CP18 project led to some national guidance. The water efficiency evidence brief has been used by Leeds to actually adopt a new standard for water efficiency. Our work with the UK CP18 data led to us being invited to be scientific advisors for the Climate Coalition's Show the Love campaign in February of this year. The enhanced surface water flood forecasting is influencing national services at the FFC, the Flood Forecasting Centre. The Environmental Science for Health and Wellbeing project is now working in partnership with the Met Office's regional prototype climate service. So we'll talk a bit about that later, but that's a really interesting partnership which has been developed. And the Green and Blue Infrastructure project has been feeding into, amongst other things, Leeds' City Air Spaces strategy, which is all about improving the city centre. So the next 4 sessions will be all about showcasing these individual projects as groupings under these 4 themes. So session 1 will be about projects related to climate services. Session 2 about flood forecasting. Session 3, flood resilience. And session 4, these projects we've got about green, blue and interoperable infrastructure.